The Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with angry voices as representatives from 12 different alien species argued about the human problem. Admiral Kim Dae-ho stood at the center of it all, his weathered face showing no emotion as the aliens shouted accusations at him and his small human delegation. The Villani ambassador Thexara rose from her crystal chair, her body glowing with anger. She was tall and thin like all her people, made of what looked like living glass that changed colors with her emotions. Right now she was bright red, which meant she was very upset. "The humans have gone too far this time," she said in her musical voice that the translation machines turned into words the humans could understand. "They took over planets in the Kepler sector without asking anyone. They are mining on Zerion 7 even though that breaks 17 different space laws." Dr. Park So-jin stepped forward holding a data tablet in her hands. She was Earth's top expert on alien life and had spent years trying to understand these strange creatures from other worlds. "Honored delegates, our surveys showed that Zerion 7 had no one living on it. We filed all the right papers 6 months ago through the proper channels." "Proper channels?" War Chief Sloth hissed, his reptile-like scales turning dark red with anger. He was huge even by Saurian standards, standing nearly 3 meters tall with claws that could cut through steel. "You mean your human offices that only follow human rules? The Kepler sector belongs to the Confederation, not to you mammals." Admiral Kim felt his jaw tighten. He had been dealing with these aliens for 3 years now, and he was getting tired of their double standards. Every time humans tried to expand or build new colonies, the aliens found some reason to complain. They acted like humans were always the bad guys, even though they were the newest members of this galactic community. "The Confederation hasn't had any ships or people in the Kepler sector for over 200 years, Kim said in a calm voice. "According to galactic salvage laws that your own council wrote, empty space belongs to whoever can use it." Silence. High Magistrate Vorthak slammed his ceremonial staff on the floor with a loud bang that echoed through the chamber. He was the most frightening of all the aliens, standing 4 meters tall with 4 arms and multiple eyes that could look in different directions at the same time. His people were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, and they thought they were better than everyone else. "The Council has made its decision," Vorthak announced in his deep voice that sounded like rocks grinding together. "Humanity will leave all contested star systems within 72 standard hours or face the consequences." Dr. Park felt her heart sink into her stomach. Those contested systems included 12 human colonies where families had lived for years, 3 important mining operations that provided metals for human ships, and the farming world of New Busan, where 2 million people grew food to feed other human worlds. "You are asking us to abandon our people," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "We are not asking," Vorthak corrected her. "We are ordering. The Galactic Defense Fleet is ready to make you obey this order if you refuse." Admiral Kim stood up slowly. His hand moved to rest on the ceremonial sword that showed his rank as a fleet commander. The sword was made from metal taken from Earth's moon and had been carried by human officers for over 50 years. "And what happens if we say no?" he asked. The chamber became completely quiet. You could have heard a pin drop. War Chief Sloth's forked tongue flicked out to taste the tension in the air like a snake sensing prey. "Then the combined might of 17 civilizations will crush your pathetic Deathworld species back into the cosmic dust where you belong," Sloth said with a cruel smile that showed his sharp teeth. Kim's smile was cold as the ice caps on Earth's poles. 17 civilizations. He turned to look at all the alien delegates, noticing how many of them couldn't look him in the eye. "Tell me something, honored representatives. How many of your home worlds have gravity stronger than 8/10 of what we call standard? How many have air pressure that would crush our fragile human bodies? How many of you have ever fought a real war on a planet where the very air is poison and the ground tries to kill you every single day? Your threats mean nothing in this place, human," Vorthak growled, all 4 of his arms crossing over his massive chest. "I'm not making threats," Kim replied, his voice becoming eerily calm like the quiet before a storm. "I'm just stating facts. You call Earth a death world because your people couldn't survive there for even one day. But you seem to forget something very important. He turned toward the exit doors with Dr. Park falling into step beside him. Deathworlders don't just survive in impossible conditions. We thrive in them. We adapt to anything. We overcome everything. As the human delegation reached the tall doors that led out of the chamber, Kim stopped and turned back one more time. You have 72 hours to think about this ultimatum and maybe change your minds. After that time is up, you will discover what happens when you threaten the children of Earth. The doors sealed shut behind them with a sound that seemed to echo through the chamber like a funeral bell ringing for the dead. Outside in the corridor, Dr. Park walked quickly to keep up with the Admiral's long strides. Sir, do you really think we can fight 17 different species at the same time? Their combined fleets must have thousands of ships. Kim stopped walking and turned to face her. His eyes held a hard look that she had seen before during the Titan mining wars when pirates had tried to take over the ice mining stations. Dr. Park, let me tell you something about humans that these aliens have never understood, he said. We didn't become the dominant species on Earth because we were the strongest or the fastest or had the biggest teeth. We became dominant because when something tried to kill us, we found a way to kill it back. When the environment tried to destroy us, we changed it to suit our needs. When other species competed with us for resources, we either made them our allies or we drove them extinct. They continued walking down the long corridor that led to the human embassy section of the station. The walls were covered with artwork from dozens of different alien cultures. Beautiful and peaceful scenes that showed worlds where evolution had been kind and gentle. These aliens have never faced real hardship, Kim continued. They evolved on garden worlds where the weather was always perfect and food grew easily, and nothing ever tried to eat them. They've been playing at civilization for thousands of years, following rules and customs that assume everyone will be reasonable and polite. But we're outnumbered, Dr. Park said. Even if every human ship joins the fight, we'll still be facing odds of 10 to 1 or worse. Kim smiled, and this time there was no coldness in it. Instead, there was something that looked almost like pity. Numbers don't tell the whole story, Doctor. These aliens have never learned what humans figured out a long time ago. It's not the size of the army that matters, it's how badly that army wants to win. They reached the human section of the station, where the corridors were built to human proportions instead of the massive scales preferred by most alien species. The walls here showed images of Earth, the blue and green marble that had given birth to the most stubborn species in the galaxy. Send a message to Fleet Command, Kim ordered as they entered his office. Tell them to begin immediate mobilization of all available vessels. Military ships, converted cargo haulers, mining platforms, even civilian transports if their captains are willing to fight. Sir, that will take every human ship in known space, Dr. Park said, her fingers already working on the communication console. Exactly, Kim replied. It's time these aliens learned what happens when you threaten a human family. They think we're just another species that will roll over and surrender when faced with superior numbers. They're about to discover that humans don't surrender. We adapt. We overcome. And when we're backed into a corner with no way out, we become the most dangerous thing in the universe. As the message went out across human space, calling every ship and every crew to join the fight for their people's survival, Kim looked out the viewport at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, alien fleets were already moving into position, confident that their technological superiority and massive numbers would be enough to crush the upstart humans. They had no idea what was coming for them. They had never faced an enemy that had learned warfare in the mud and blood of a world that tried to kill everything that lived on it. They had never fought against a species that saw impossible odds not as a reason to surrender, but as a challenge to overcome. The children of Earth were coming, and they were bringing with them all the fury and determination of a species that had never learned the meaning of defeat. General Lee Minho stood on the bridge of the massive warship UES Indomitable and watched the holographic display that showed human ships gathering from every corner of known space. Ships were coming from the ice mining stations around Jupiter, from the deep space exploration fleets beyond the galactic rim, from cargo routes that connected human colonies scattered across dozens of star systems. Status report, Commander Yoon Hae-jin, he said to the young officer who was working at the tactical console. Commander Yoon's fingers moved quickly across the glowing controls as she gathered information from across the fleet. Admiral Cho Sang-wook reports that the Third Fleet will arrive at our meeting point in 3 hours. Captain Na Mil-sung and his 5th Expeditionary Force are holding their position at the Kepler jump point. We're looking at roughly 400 ships right now, sir, with more arriving every hour. 400 ships against 17 different alien civilizations, said Dr. Kwon Yoon-ji, the fleet's chief science officer. She was a small woman who looked like she belonged in a university laboratory rather than on a warship, but her knowledge of alien technology was better than anyone else in human space. The numbers are not in our favor. General Lee turned to look at her, seeing the worry in her dark eyes. Numbers don't tell the whole story, Doctor. Show me the comparison analysis. The hologram changed to display detailed information about ships from both sides. The alien vessels looked like works of art, all smooth curves and elegant lines that seemed to flow like water frozen in time. Their hulls gleamed with advanced materials that could deflect energy weapons, and their engines left trails of beautiful light as they moved through space. The human ships looked crude and ugly in comparison. They were all angles and armor plating, their hulls scarred from countless battles with hostile environments and the merciless vacuum of space itself. Where alien ships looked like they had been designed by artists, human ships looked like they had been built by engineers who expected everything to go wrong. Their ships are faster than ours, Commander Yoon observed, pointing to the specifications on her screen. They have better shields and more advanced weapon systems. Built by species that evolved on garden worlds, General Lee said with a slight smile. Designed by minds that never had to worry about their enemy ramming them with an asteroid moving at 10% of light speed. Look deeper at the specifications. Dr. Kwon highlighted the structural details of the alien ships, and her eyes widened with understanding. Remarkable. Their hulls are designed for maximum efficiency and visual appeal, but the stress tolerances are... She paused as the full implications hit her. They're designed for controlled environments and predictable battle conditions. Exactly right. Now show me our ships. The display focused on the Indomitable and the other human vessels in the fleet. Where alien ships flowed like rivers, human ships were built like medieval castles. Every surface was covered with thick armor. Plating every critical system had multiple backups, and every weapon was designed to keep working, even when everything else had failed. The UES Soul's Vengeance once had its entire left side torn off by a micrometeorite storm during the Battle of Proxima Station, General Lee continued, his voice carrying the weight of personal memory. Captain Bae Jun-ho and his crew kept fighting for 6 hours with half their ship open to vacuum and their life support systems failing. They won that battle and saved 3 colony ships full of civilian families. These aliens surrender if their climate control systems stop working properly. Commander Yoon pulled up another display that showed encrypted messages flowing in from human colonies throughout the disputed star systems. Sir, we're receiving reports from the colonial governors. Governor Seo Min-woo on New Busan says complete evacuation within 48 hours is impossible. The agricultural workers are refusing to abandon their crops right before harvest season. What about the miners on Zarian 7? Station Chief Park Dong-hyun says his people won't leave under any circumstances. They've found something important, sir. Something that could change everything. Dr. Kwon looked up from her console with barely controlled excitement in her voice. General, I'm receiving preliminary data from Zarian 7 right now. They've discovered trilithium ore deposits unlike anything we've seen before in the galaxy. If we could process even a small fraction of it, our ships would be twice as fast as anything these aliens have, General Lee finished for her. Now I understand why the Galactic Council is so eager to claim that world for themselves. A new voice cut through the bridge chatter as Admiral Kim Dae-ho's image appeared in the main hologram. He was broadcasting from his flagship somewhere else in the growing fleet, his face showing the determination that had made him legendary among human military officers. All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Kim. The Council's deadline expires in 18 hours. I want every ship in position within 12 hours. Remember, we didn't start this fight, but we're going to finish it. We're not the aggressors here, but we will not abandon our people to alien demands. What about the evacuation orders from Earth Command? Commander Yoon asked. Admiral Kim's expression became grim and his voice carried a finality that left no room for argument. There are some lines that civilized people don't cross. Forcing humans to abandon their homes and families is one of those lines. The Galactic Council seems to have forgotten that we're the species that chose to leave our perfect blue world and make new homes in the hostile darkness between the stars. General Lee nodded in complete understanding. Around him on the bridge, his crew worked with quiet efficiency as they prepared for what might be the most important battle in human history. They were outnumbered by at least 10 to 1, outgunned by enemies with technology that was centuries more advanced than their own, and facing alien species that had been mastering interstellar warfare since before humans had discovered fire. But they were human, and humans had been beating impossible odds since their ancestors first picked up rocks to fight the predators that hunted them in the African grasslands millions of years ago. "Commander Yoon," General Lee said quietly, "send a message to every ship in the fleet. Remind them what we're fighting for." As more ships continued to arrive at the rally point, each vessel carried the same message that had been broadcast across human space. Remember Earth and why we left our homeworld in the first place. Remember the families and communities we've built among the stars. Remember that we are the children of a world that tried to kill us every single day, and we not only survived but learned to thrive. The alien fleets were already moving into position around the Kepler sector, confident that their superior numbers and advanced technology would be enough to crush the upstart humans back into submission. Their ships moved in perfect formations, following battle plans that had been developed over thousands of years of civilized warfare between rational species. They had no experience fighting an enemy that had learned warfare in the mud and blood and endless struggle of a death world. They had never faced a species that saw impossible odds not as a reason to surrender, but as just another problem to solve through adaptation and determination. Captain Lim Yu-jin stood on the bridge of her destroyer, Busan Rising, and watched the tactical display that showed both fleets moving toward their inevitable confrontation. Her ship was small compared to the massive alien dreadnoughts, but it was built like a fortress and crewed by people who had grown up hearing stories about their ancestors' struggles to survive on the most hostile planet in known space. "Captain," said Lieutenant Oh Se-hun from the navigation station, "the alien fleet is beautiful. I've never seen ships like those before." Captain Lim had to agree with him. The enemy vessels were indeed works of art, their hulls flowing like liquid metal and energy fields dancing around them in patterns of impossible complexity. The Vellani dreadnoughts looked like crystal cathedrals floating in space, while the Zephyrian carriers resembled living organisms more than mechanical constructs. "Beauty. Won't save them when the shooting starts," she said quietly, then activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. In a few hours, we're going to show the galaxy what happens when someone threatens human families." Across the human fleet, similar scenes were playing out on hundreds of ships. Crews that included former miners, cargo haulers, exploration specialists, and civilian volunteers worked alongside professional military personnel to prepare for battle. They came from different worlds and different backgrounds, but they shared the common heritage of Earth and the stubborn refusal to surrender that had carried their species from a single world to dozens of star systems. The storm clouds were gathering. In the darkness between the stars and at their heart was the fury of a species that had never learned the meaning of defeat. The aliens were about to discover that threatening human families was the worst mistake they could possibly make. Time was running out, and soon the galaxy would witness something it had never seen before. The full military might of Earth's children, unleashed in defense of everything they held dear. The Deathworlders were coming, and they were bringing with them all the accumulated wisdom of 1,000,000 years of survival on the most dangerous planet in known space. The edge of the Kepler sector glowed with energy as two massive fleets faced each other across the cold vacuum of space. Captain Lim Yu-jin stood on the bridge of her destroyer Busan Rising, watching the tactical display that showed the enemy formations spread out like a deadly constellation. The Galactic Defense Fleet stretched across space in perfect geometric patterns, over 800 ships representing the combined military might of 17 different alien civilizations. "They really are beautiful," whispered Lieutenant Oh Se-hun from his position at the navigation console. "I've never seen anything like those ships before." Captain Lim had to agree with her young navigator. The alien vessels were incredible works of art that seemed to defy the basic laws of physics and engineering. Their hulls flowed like liquid metal that had been frozen at the moment of perfect grace, while energy fields danced around them in patterns of impossible complexity that hurt the human eye to look at directly. The Volani dreadnoughts looked like crystal cathedrals that belonged in a museum rather than a battlefield, while the Zephyrian carriers resembled living creatures, more than machines built in shipyards. Beauty won't save them from what's coming, Lim said quietly, then activated the ship-wide communication system so her voice would reach every member of her crew. All hands, this is your captain speaking. In just a few minutes, we're going to show the entire galaxy what happens when someone makes the mistake of threatening human families. The communication system crackled with static as Admiral Kim Dae-ho's voice cut through the interference from his flagship, somewhere in the center of the human formation. All vessels, this is Admiral Kim. The Council fleet is sending us a transmission. Let's hear what they have to say before we give them our answer. High Magistrate Vorthak's imposing figure filled the main display screen, his 4 massive arms gesturing dramatically, while his multiple eyes focused on the human fleet with obvious contempt. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship showed the casual arrogance of a species that had never lost a real war. Human fleet, you are in direct violation of Galactic Council Decree 2847. Vorthak announced in his grinding voice that sounded like mountains colliding. Withdraw from this system immediately or face complete destruction. Admiral Kim appeared in a split-screen display, his scarred face showing the calm expression that every human officer had learned to fear during their training. High Magistrate, our civilian population is still in the process of evacuation from the disputed worlds. We need additional time to complete the withdrawal. Time is a luxury you no longer possess, Vorthak replied coldly. This is your final warning before we begin military action. Then let me give you a warning in return, Kim said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper that somehow carried more menace than any shout. You're about to learn exactly why every species in this galaxy calls our homeworld a death world. He paused for a moment, then spoke the words that would change galactic history forever. Captain Lee Bo-young, all human vessels are now weapons-free. The first shots of the battle came from the human frigate Inchin's Fury, a small ship that looked like a flying brick compared to the elegant alien vessels. Instead of the sophisticated energy beams that the aliens expected, the human ship launched a salvo of kinetic penetrators, simple chunks of depleted uranium that had been accelerated to tremendous velocity by magnetic coils. The Volani cruiser, Crystal Harmony, tried to deflect the incoming projectiles with its advanced energy shields, the same defensive systems that had protected alien ships for thousands of years. The shields flared with brilliant light as they absorbed the incoming energy, but the simple metal slugs punched through the barriers like they were made of tissue paper and tore massive holes in the crystalline hull. Impossible, Fleet Commander. Seltern snarled from his position on the bridge of the alien flagship. Their weapons are completely primitive. How can they penetrate our defensive systems? What the aliens didn't understand was that human weapons weren't designed for elegant space battles between civilized species who followed ancient rules of warfare. They were designed by a species that had learned the art of killing in the mud and blood of countless worlds, where survival meant adapting any tool, any tactic, any strategy that actually worked, instead of looking impressive. Captain Nam Il-sung of the heavy cruiser Daigu's Hammer smiled grimly as he watched the confusion spreading through the enemy formation. Weapons officer, fire the mining charges, he ordered calmly. The aliens watched in growing horror as the human ship launched what appeared to be simple cargo containers toward their formation. War Chief Slath hissed in confusion from his command post, his reptilian features twisted with puzzlement. What manner of weapon system is this supposed to be? They received their answer when the containers detonated in the middle of the alien battle formation. Each container held several tons of industrial mining explosives, the same charges that human miners use to blast apart asteroids in search of valuable metals. The elegant battle lines that the aliens had maintained for centuries dissolved into complete chaos as ships designed for ceremonial displays found themselves dealing with the brutal reality of human warfare. They're using industrial equipment as weapons. Zephyrian Admiral Quixera could barely process what she was seeing through her ship's sensors. That's completely barbaric. There are rules about proper military conduct. But the humans were just getting started with their demonstration of Deathworld tactics. Commander Shin Ye-jin of the assault transport Gwangju's Vengeance made a decision that would have been considered insane by any rational species. She aimed her ship directly at a massive Saurian battleship and used her emergency thrusters to accelerate beyond any safe operational parameters. At the last possible second, her entire crew evacuated in escape pods while the ship, loaded with antimatter from its damaged drive core, struck the enemy vessel amidships like a guided missile. The explosion that followed lit up the entire sector like a newborn star and vaporized both ships in an instant. Status report. Admiral Kim called out across the fleet communication system. Captain Yu Seong-min from the corvette Mokpo's Defiance was the first to respond. Sir, we've lost contact with Gwangju's Vengeance, but they took that Saurian battleship with them. The Ulsan's Pride has heavy damage to their port side, but they're still in the fight. What about our casualties? Light casualties so far, Admiral. The enemy seems completely confused by our tactical approach. Kim nodded with satisfaction. The aliens fought the same way they lived, with precision and elegance and an assumption that their enemies would follow the same ancient rules that had governed civilized warfare for millennia. Humans had learned their fighting skills in an environment where the only rule was survival at any cost. Dr. Park So-jin watched the battle unfold from the medical bay of the flagship, monitoring the tactical display with a mixture of fascination and horror. They're not just winning this engagement, she said quietly to Chief Medical Officer Dr. Hong Gi-taik. They're completely rewriting the basic concepts of space combat. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Hong asked. I honestly don't know, Park admitted, but it's definitely human. The battle continued for 3 more hours, and with each passing minute, the Galactic Defense Fleet's advantage in numbers and technology became increasingly meaningless. Human ships used tactics that no civilized species had ever considered, ramming enemy vessels with damaged ships, using civilian cargo haulers as improvised weapons platforms, and employing mining equipment in ways that would have horrified their original designers. By the time the shooting finally stopped, the Galactic Defense Fleet was in full retreat, leaving behind nearly 200 destroyed or crippled vessels floating in the void. The human fleet had lost only 37 ships, though many more bore the scars of battle that would take months to repair properly. But the real shock came when Captain Kim Hyo-jin of the scout ship Yosu's transmitted her report from the edge of the battlefield. Admiral Kim, you're not going to believe this. The aliens are requesting immediate parley. They want to negotiate terms for ending hostilities. Admiral Kim stared at the retreating enemy fleet with amazement. In all his years of dealing with the Galactic Council, he had never seen them back down from any position when they held what they thought was a position of strength. Open a communication channel to High Magistrate Vorthak, he ordered. When the alien leader appeared on the main screen, his earlier arrogance had been completely replaced by something that Kim had never seen in any council member before. Genuine uncertainty and what might have been fear. Admiral Kim, Vorthak began, his voice lacking any of its usual commanding authority. Perhaps we were too hasty in our previous demands. The council is prepared to discuss reasonable terms for a peaceful resolution. Kim's smile was cold as the space between the stars. High Magistrate, the time for reasonable discussion was 3 days ago when you issued your ultimatum. Now we discuss terms, but they will be our terms. As the human fleet regrouped and began advancing deeper into the Kepler sector, word of their victory spread throughout the galaxy faster than light itself. The Deathworlders had not just fought back against the Council's demands. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in complete chaos, unlike anything the ancient chamber had witnessed in over 1,000 years of civilized debate. High Magistrate Vorthak stood before the assembled delegates, his 4 massive arms trembling with a combination of rage and fear that his species had never evolved the psychological mechanisms to process properly. 17 civilizations, he began, his voice hoarse from the strain of admitting failure. 800 ships representing the finest military technology in the known galaxy. 200 vessels lost in a single engagement against a species that has been part of our community for less than 1 century. Ambassador Ray Lisa of the Aquarian Collective rose from her specialized fluid chamber, her bioluminescent patterns flickering with distress signals that would have been beautiful under any other circumstances. How is such a devastating defeat even possible? Human technology is primitive compared to our own. Their ships look like they were assembled in scrapyards. Their technology is completely irrelevant to the outcome, War Chief Sloth interjected, his scales still dark with the humiliation of retreat. They don't fight like civilized beings who understand the proper rules of warfare. They fight like wild animals with no concept of honor or military tradition. In the observation deck of the UES Indomitable, Admiral Kim Dae-ho watched the council proceedings with Dr. Park So-jin and General Lee Min-ho. The translation algorithms were struggling to keep up with the rapid exchanges between different species, but the meaning was crystal clear to any human observer. Complete panic. They're not accustomed to losing battles, Dr. Park observed, studying the body language of the various alien delegates. Look at their physical responses. Fear is a completely foreign emotion to most of these species. General Lee nodded grimly as he analyzed the tactical implications. Garden World Syndrome in its most extreme form. When your species evolves in paradise, you never develop the survival instincts that harsh environments breed into every generation. They've been playing at warfare for thousands of years, following elaborate rules and protocols that assume your enemy shares your basic values and cultural assumptions. On the main screen, Fleet Commander Zeltaran was presenting his detailed tactical analysis to the assembled delegates. The humans utilize standard industrial equipment as improvised weapon systems. Mining charges designed for asteroid excavation, construction vehicles converted into assault platforms. Even civilian cargo haulers have been weaponized beyond any reasonable safety parameters. Their ships are constructed more like mobile fortresses than proper spacecraft. When damaged beyond normal operational limits, they continue fighting far beyond any logical point of surrender. Admiral Kim activated the communication system that would broadcast his image directly into the council chamber. It was time to make humanity's position absolutely clear to every species in the galaxy. The council chamber fell into complete silence as Kim's battle-scarred face appeared on the central holographic display. Behind him, the bridge of the human flagship bustled with activity as crew members prepared for whatever came next in this confrontation. Honored delegates, Kim began, his voice carrying the absolute conviction of someone who held all the important cards and knew exactly how to play them. We have received your request for immediate negotiation. Here are humanity's terms for ending this conflict. High Magistrate Vorthak leaned forward in his massive chair, his multiple eyes focusing on the human admiral with desperate intensity. You seem to forget your proper place in the galactic order, human. The Council does not negotiate with the Council, Kim interrupted with cold precision. Just lost 200 advanced warships to a force that was outnumbered 5-1. I suggest you listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. Dr. Park smiled despite the enormous tension that filled the air around them. She had seen that particular expression in Admiral Kim's eyes before, during the brutal Titan mining wars when human colonists had fought off pirate fleets that vastly outnumbered them. It was the look of a man who held absolute power and understood exactly how to use it. First condition, Kim continued methodically. All human colonies and mining operations will continue their normal activities without any interference from Council forces. Second condition, the entire Kepler sector is now under direct human administration and protection. Third condition, any alien species that wishes to conduct mining operations or establish settlements in human-controlled space will do so under human regulations and with human military protection. The chamber erupted in outraged voices as delegates from multiple species shouted protests in languages that the translation system couldn't process fast enough. War Chief Sloth rose to his full, intimidating height, towering over the other representatives, like an ancient predator. Completely unacceptable, Sloth roared, his claws extending in a threat display that had terrified enemies for millions of years. You are a single species demanding control over an entire sector of space. We are the only species willing and able to fight for it. Kim replied with perfect calm. Tell me something, War Chief. How many of your Saurian warriors have actually died in real combat? How many of your ships have been lost to hostile environments or enemy action? Your entire military doctrine is based on intimidation through superior technology and overwhelming numbers. You've never been forced to learn how to adapt, overcome, and survive the way that humans have throughout their entire evolutionary history. Captain Lim Yu-jin appeared in a smaller communication window within the main display. Admiral, we've just received updated reports from Station Chief Park Dong-hyun on Zarian 7. The trilithium deposits are significantly larger than our initial surveys indicated. Conservative estimates suggest they could power our entire fleet for several centuries of continuous operation. The implications of that statement weren't lost on any of the council delegates. Ambassador Ray Lisa flowed closer to her communication interface, her bioluminescent patterns shifting to colors that indicated diplomatic urgency. Admiral Kim, surely reasonable beings can reach some form of compromise arrangement, she said in her musical voice. The galactic community has maintained peaceful coexistence for over 1,000 years. Peace built on the fundamental assumption that no one would ever seriously challenge your authority, General Lee interjected, moving into the camera's field of view. You've grown soft and complacent during all those centuries of easy prosperity. You call Earth a death world, but you've never really understood what that designation actually means. It doesn't just indicate that our planet is dangerous to other forms of life. It means that we ourselves are dangerous. Dr. Park stepped forward, her voice carrying the scientific authority of her position as humanity's foremost expert on alien biology and psychology. Honorable delegates, I have spent years studying your remarkable civilizations and their incredible achievements. You represent some of the most advanced and sophisticated cultures in the known galaxy. But you all share one critical evolutionary weakness. None of your species has ever faced genuine extinction-level threats. That's completely impossible, Thexara protested, her crystalline form glowing with indignation. Every intelligent species faces evolutionary pressures during their development. Not like humans have faced, Dr. Park continued with clinical precision. We have survived multiple ice ages, supervolcanic eruptions that blocked out our sun for years, asteroid impacts that would have sterilized most worlds, and dozens of other near-extinction events throughout our evolutionary history. We didn't just survive these catastrophes, we adapted to them, and learned to thrive under conditions that would destroy most other species within hours. That's not merely our biology talking, it's our fundamental psychology. When you threaten human families and communities, you're not just threatening another species. You're challenging the ultimate survivors. Admiral Kim gestured toward something outside the camera's view, and the display showed the human fleet that now numbered over 600 ships of various types and sizes. Additional vessels continue to arrive every hour. Military warships, converted cargo haulers, mining platforms, even civilian transports that have been fitted with whatever weapons their crews could improvise in their workshops. You see, when you threaten human families, you don't just face our professional military forces. You face every single human who can strap a rocket engine to their ship and join the fight to protect their people. The silence in the council chamber was absolutely deafening. These alien civilizations had mastered interstellar travel, conquered diseases that had plagued them for millennia, built utopian societies that their ancestors could never have imagined, but they had never faced an enemy that simply refused to be conquered under any circumstances. High Magistrate Vorthok finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. What exactly do you want from us? Admiral Kim's expression softened slightly, showing a glimpse of the diplomat that lay beneath the warrior's exterior. Respect and recognition that humanity has earned its place in this galaxy, not through ancient treaties or inherited advanced technology, but through blood, determination, and the absolute refusal to surrender. 6 months after the decisive Battle of Kepler Sector, the galaxy had transformed into something completely different from what it had been for over 1,000 years of peaceful coexistence. Admiral Kim Dae-ho stood in his new office aboard Kepler Station, which had formerly served as the Galactic Council's administrative center for the entire sector. watching through the massive viewport as human and alien ships worked together in the sprawling shipyards that had grown up around Azerion 7. Like a metallic forest, a soft chime announced the arrival of Dr. Park So-jin, who now served as Director of Interspecies Relations, a position that hadn't existed before the war, but had become absolutely essential in the new galactic order. She carried a data tablet, filled with reports from across human-controlled space, documenting the remarkable changes that were taking place throughout the galaxy. The integration process is proceeding much better than our most optimistic projections predicted, she reported, settling into a chair that had been designed for species twice her size, but had been modified with human comfort in mind. The Aquarian Collective has formally requested human military protection for their mining operations in the dangerous radiation fields of the Rigel Nebula. Apparently, their ships keep suffering critical system failures in those intense electromagnetic environments. Admiral Kim nodded, completely unsurprised by this development. What's the current status with the Villani? Ambassador Thexara has been remarkably cooperative since the battle, Dr. Park replied, consulting her notes. They've agreed to share their advanced crystal matrix technology in exchange for our atmospheric processing equipment. It seems they want to establish new colonies in star systems they previously considered completely uninhabitable due to environmental hazards. A holographic display activated automatically, showing General Lee Min-ho broadcasting from the bridge of the UES Soul's Pride as it patrolled the outer boundaries of human space. Admiral, we've completed our comprehensive survey of the Terminus systems. Captain Nam Il-sung reports 17 potentially habitable worlds, including 3 that the Saurians abandoned decades ago due to what they classified as excessive geological activity. Volcanoes and earthquake zones, Admiral Kim translated, with a slight smile that showed his amusement. Schedule immediate colonization surveys for all 17 worlds. And General, what's the current status of our new alien recruits? General Lee's expression grew genuinely amused as he considered the question. You mean the alien volunteers? Who want to join human military forces? Commander Yoon Hai-jin has been running orientation and training programs for them. Most candidates wash out within the first week when they discover what human military training actually involves, but we've had some remarkable surprises. A few Zephyrian pilots have successfully adapted to our combat flight training methods, and one Aquarian engineer actually completed our entire combat engineering program. Dr. Park looked up from her data tablet with obvious interest. That would be Ensign Merdala. She's the first non-human to graduate from any human military academy in our history. The Galactic Council is expressing significant displeasure about this development. The office door chimed again and Captain Lim Yu-jin entered, now commanding the sector patrol fleet that kept the peace throughout human-controlled space. Sir, we have a developing situation in the Andromeda Transit Zone that requires immediate attention. War Chief Sloth is requesting emergency assistance. Admiral Kim raised an eyebrow in surprise. 6 months ago, Sloth had been calling for humanity's complete extermination from the galaxy. What's the nature of this emergency? Hostile contact with an unknown species, sir. They've destroyed 3 Saurian ships and are advancing on Saurian colonial worlds. The war chief's exact words were, "We desperately need the Deathworlders to help us." The main display activated, showing a heavily damaged Saurian vessel limping through space with massive holes torn in its armored hull. War Chief Sloth appeared on the screen, his once proud bearing completely replaced by obvious desperation and something that looked suspiciously like terror. Admiral Kim, Sloth began, clearly struggling to swallow what remained of his pride. We require immediate military assistance. These new hostile forces fight unlike any species we have previously encountered in our long history. They completely ignore our surrender signals, show absolutely no mercy to civilian populations, and their ships are. He paused, obviously struggling with the admission he was about to make. Their vessels are as crude and brutally effective as your own human designs. Dr. Park leaned forward with scientific curiosity overriding diplomatic protocol. War Chief, please describe their ship configurations and tactical methods in detail. Function over aesthetic considerations, massive armor plating, weapon systems that appear to be improvised from industrial equipment but prove devastatingly effective in actual combat. They, Sloth's voice dropped to a whisper that barely registered on the communication system. They fight exactly like humans do. Admiral Kim felt a cold chill run down his spine as the implications became clear. Another species with humanity's survival instincts and willingness to use any tactic necessary could completely reshape the balance of power that humans had worked so hard to establish. General Lee, begin immediate fleet mobilization procedures. Captain Lim, I want reconnaissance ships in the Andromeda Zone within 12 hours maximum. Sir, Captain Shin Ye-jin reported from the communications station. We're receiving direct transmissions from the hostile fleet. They're demanding the immediate surrender of all Council member species and... She paused, checking her translation algorithms. They're specifically requesting to speak with the fellow Deathworlders they've heard stories about. The pieces of... The puzzle clicked into place in Admiral Kim's experienced mind. Dr. Park, run a complete xenobiological analysis on any data we can gather about these beings. I want to know exactly what kind of world could have produced a species like this. Several hours later, the results were both fascinating and deeply troubling. Dr. Kwon Yoonji presented her findings to the senior staff with scientific precision that couldn't hide her obvious concern. Their ships show evidence of radiation shielding that exceeds anything we've encountered before in the galaxy. Gravity. Compensation systems rated for at least 2.5 times standard planetary gravity. Atmospheric recycling equipment designed for environments rich in sulfur compounds and other toxic chemicals that would kill most known life forms within minutes. Another Deathworld species, Admiral Kim concluded grimly. Possibly from a planet even more hostile than Earth. Captain Bae Jun-ho of the heavy cruiser Pusan's Wrath appeared on the communication system. Admiral, we've established direct contact with the hostile fleet. Their leader is demanding to speak with you personally. The main screen flickered and stabilized, revealing a being that was clearly the product of an extremely harsh evolutionary environment, tall and heavily muscled, with redundant sensory organs and skin that looked thick enough to deflect small arms fire. When it spoke, the translation algorithm struggled with concepts that had no equivalent in most galactic languages. I am Prime, survivor Graktar of the Vinder Horde, the being announced in a voice like grinding stone. We have traveled across the galaxy to cleanse these stars of the weak and soft creatures that infest them. But we have heard tales of a species called humans, who share our strength and determination. We offer alliance against the prey animals that pretend to be civilized. Admiral Kim stood slowly, his command presence filling the room with authority that had been earned through years of impossible victories. Prime Survivor, I am Admiral Kim Dae-ho of the Human Colonial Defense Force. We've heard reports of your activities in Saurian space. The Scaled Ones broke quickly and completely, Graktar replied with obvious contempt, as did the Crystal Singers and the Water Dwellers. But you humans conquered them without destroying them entirely. This demonstrates wisdom. It demonstrates restraint and long-term thinking, Kim corrected firmly, something your species might benefit from learning. Graktar's laugh sounded like rocks grinding together in an avalanche. Restraint? You think survival is about showing restraint to your enemies? I think survival is about successful adaptation to changing circumstances, Kim replied with perfect calm. We've learned through bitter experience that sometimes the strongest possible action is to turn former enemies into useful allies. The species you dismiss as prey animals are now our partners in this galaxy. They provide advanced technology, valuable resources, and accumulated knowledge spanning thousands of years. In return, we provide military protection and the kind of strength that can only come from a world that tried to kill us every single day for millions of years of evolution. The Vindor leader fell silent, clearly considering this completely foreign concept. Dr. Park stepped into the camera's field of view, her scientific mind already working on the problem. Prime Survivor, what if I told you there was a proven method to claim territory, resources, and respect throughout the galaxy without requiring the complete extermination of entire civilizations? What if I told you that cooperation and alliance could make your people stronger than conquest and destruction ever could?